Kia ora koutou, and welcome to this session on monitoring change over time with historical imagery. This morning we're going to be looking at all kinds of different ways that you can access imagery to detect and monitor change over time. So the main focus for our exploration this morning is for those working in iwi and Māori trusts and related environmental and associated projects and kaupapa. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen here. First thing I want to point out is to access this document, which is a document of links, you can go to haere/change. So hae.re/change. And I'm just going to scroll down here just to show you there's a few links in here. So we're going to have a look at today a variety of imagery. So in our kite, we're going to look at a site called Retrolens. We're going to have a look at a small case study on a place called Moana in Hauraki, Northern Hauraki. We're going to have a look at accessing historical aerial photographs. So these are photographs taken from airplanes, as well as using Google Earth Pro. We're going to have a look at how to overlay some of those images in 3D and to create a fly-through with them very, very quickly, but that'll be another kaupapa for a different time using Google Earth Pro. We'll have a look at another resource called Esri Wayback Imagery, as well as one of my favorites, which is Google Maps Street View, and how you can use that in your projects as well. So the main thing, why would you want to monitor change over time? So you might be looking at an environmental monitoring or water quality monitoring or environmental change project where you've noticed a change in the Whenua or in the moana or marakai, and so there are a variety of images that are available to us. These come from 1936 onwards in black and white photographs that we can access through Retrolens. And I'm just going to skip forward and just show you an example of what you can do with some of these images. So I'm just going to download, actually I think I've already downloaded them. Let me just grab this. So you can access all of these files through that link, hae.re/change. Oh, yes, I've already downloaded them on this PC. And so Google Earth, if you've not used Google Earth before, it's a really neat tool for accessing imagery as well as 3D fly-throughs. So Google Earth, I think probably everyone has come across Google Earth at some point. They're moving online now, but the desktop still provides some additional functionality. So here we can see a historical aerial photograph from Whenua Harbour. This is just to orientate ourselves. Here's Coromandel, Hauraki area here, Thames, Pairoa. So down here on the way to Coromandel is Whenua. So kia ora to the wharekura, everybody down there. So here's an example of an aerial photo from 1944, overlaid on the Whenua and overlaid on the landscape. So we can come down here and we can have a look at what has changed since 1944. And I'll show you how to find, access, download, and overlay these images. So one of the issues, for example, in this area, and the reason I chose this area as our study area, is that there's an increase in an unusual, unnatural growth in mangroves. So you can see them in this underlying modern satellite image, growing way out here in the moana. Whereas in 1944, they were nowhere near as prominent. And we can actually see, with using these historical images, change over time, the increase in vegetation, and also some potential, in this particular case, there are some potential time frames where we can see where ecological change or ecological damage may have been done. Okay, so that's kind of the stuff that we're going to have a look at today. Let's have another quick look at something else we're going to be looking at in our links here. So we're going to be looking at some of the LINZ, more recent LINZ aerial photography. Now this information is much, much more detailed, and it's come out here. Just turn this off. We're going to be looking at how you can access this and how you can use it in your projects as well. So let's have a look here. We've got some aerial photos. So this is telling me it's Waikato. It's 0.5 of meter, so that's 50 centimeters. So about 1 pixel represents an area about this big. So as we zoom down, we can look in increasing detail until we're looking at one of these pixels, which is about 50 centimeters, 0.5 meter, one of these pixels here. Okay, we'll have a look at that. Let's see what else. Google Earth Pro, we'll have a quick look at some information that's available in Google Earth Pro as well. So up here on the toolbar in Google Earth Pro, which is free, you can access historical satellite imagery. And this is very, very nice and easy way to see what satellite imagery is available for free in your area of interest. So if we come down here and have a look at Wharekura is somewhere, no. Oh, maybe that is, yeah, there it is. There it is. There's a Wharekura just there. We can have a look over time. We can even possibly identify when that Wharekura was built. So let's have a look. We go back through some imagery here. Coming back. That's 1, 2, skip a few. 2010, we can see there was just a couple of buildings there. And there's a few issues with some of this, using some of this imagery to be aware of as well. We can see there's quite a difference there from 2008 until today. And we can go back even further. And if we zoom out a bit, we can go all the way back to 1985. But what we're dealing with there is different resolutions of imagery, different sources. Okay, let's see. We'll have a look at Esri Wayback imagery, which is very similar as well. And we'll also have a quick look at this Google time lapse. And we'll just put this on. Hopefully that's going to, here we go. So it may not come through very clearly because it is playing very fast. I'm just going to slow it down. So this is showing you from 1984, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, blah, 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 all the way through using what's called Landsat satellite images. Landsat pixel size is, I think from memory, either 15 or 30 meters per pixel. So you know the 50 centimeters before. So it doesn't matter how far we zoom in, we're still not going to see any more detail with this imagery type, which is from a satellite, because the pixels, one individual pixel is 15 meters on the ground. But it's really useful for seeing landscape change. So different scales, different types of information for different scales. And you can see there forestry being cleared and replanted. So they've gone through and they've basically trawled through an entire millions of images to pull out just the images, satellite images without clouds, so that you can use it for this kind of change detection. So I should mention, we're also just looking at manual change detection today. We're not going to be looking at any more enhanced tools for identifying vegetation change at a quantitative level, because that's a lot more involved. We're just going to be looking at some basic tools where you can look over a much more vast time frame, but a bit more qualitatively. So there's a bit more work involved, but a bit more applied, I think, to many of the projects that Whenua will be working on. Okay, so that's a quick squiz at what we're going to be looking at this morning. Let's have a look at the start. Now, if you want to follow along, hae.re/chain. The first site we're going to look at is Retrolens. So Retrolens.z. And let me just check in on the chat somewhere. Where is the chat? Okay, kia ora. Okay. Get rid of Google Earth for now. Come back to Retrolens. So what is Retrolens? So in early days of aerial photography, the value was seen by for all kinds of purposes, particularly military. So as we came into World War II, there was a need to map all of Aotearoa. And so what they've done is they took a series of photographs from planes from 1936, probably some others, but these are the ones that are available on this website, right and through until kind of right through until the present time. As satellite images and satellite imagery and things changed, they stopped using film-based photos and moved into digital. So this is mostly the film-based imagery. So let's have a look here. How do we use this? So what I typically do is I'll search on here. I'll go, let's say, Whenua, and it'll pop up with some options. So I'll click on there and go search. And it will zoom to that area. I use that because I wanted to use it to get close to Manaia. And I can zoom in here. And I can see all of these orange squares are representing an available historic aerial photo. So as I zoom into my area of interest, in this case using Manaia, so SCH represents Manaia Wharekura just there, and here's the harbour. So I'm interested in looking at the expansion of mangroves in relation to mud or nutrient or runoff, or trying to understand why are mangrove trees growing further and further out into the moana. So as I hover over here, I can access all kinds of images, and it's telling me the dates that these were taken, and the approximate coverage is hovering over on the left-hand side. Now, what I can also do is I can bring, so I can see there for this area, there's 115 images. I can bring this down, let's say to the 50s, and the further I come down, the smaller that number is going to be. So just hide myself. Okay, so I can add them all and download them, but generally this is how I tend to use it. I will hover around like this until I find an image that covers the area that I'm interested in. Okay, so here's one. Here's another. They're kind of in patterns because they're taking as the plane flew, so they are in some kind of order by date and things like this, but generally I will just, okay, so there's one from 22nd of May 1944. So I can hover over here and I can double check that this is the area that I'm interested in. I can see here it was taken from a height of 11,000 feet on 22nd of May. It's photo number 9 in a series. So if you're into stereo, you can sometimes get two photos that are overlapping, and in 3D goggles, you can actually look at them in 3D if you know how to set up that software. But in this case, I just want to download this image because I want to look at it more closely and add it to a PowerPoint or something like this. So I can zoom in here, I can click, and I can scroll, pan around. I'm just looking at this in the browser, but you may want to use something like whatever your favorite drawing program is. I use a free one called IRFan View. It's very old, very reliable, maintained, updated. So you can see here, I can look through and I can get some incredible detail out of this historical image. Looks like it was haymaking. Oh no, that's animal tracks, farm tracks maybe on the slopes. So you can see in here what the landscape, what the vegetation is. You can identify trees. You can see what the land cover is. You can see here we've got agricultural use here, grass. Maybe this is a side of a slope, so it's a bit more rough. maybe it's going back into regenerating bush. You can see down here in the creek as well. So there's one from 1944. And we've got it filtered on 47, so it's not going to show us anything beyond 47. So let's say, okay, now we've got an image from 1944. We want one a few years later. So let's bring our query up a bit, and we'll bring this up to 44, 45, so that we're not getting the same images. And we can see in this case, there are 0. So we need to expand our filter a little. So here it looks like we've got, if I bring that back, we've got 44. Here we've got 1966. So we can get a series of images for this location, 1944, 1966. And we can see this one here when I click into it. Okay, it's not quite there as after. Okay, you can see it's approximation because they're not all exactly placed. They're kind of approximations. Okay, here we go. It's another one here. And surprisingly, many of these are done when the tide is out, fortunately. So let's expand our search and see what else we can find there. If we bring that up a bit into the 70s, we can see here, we've got some useful images here as well in the 70s. So there's no simple way to pull out these images and view time-based animations or create them. Many of the district councils and regional councils have gone through and done a job for us in that they've taken out all of the available images and put them into a mosaic, so you can turn them on and off by layer over time. So before you do too much work with this site, have a look at the regional council for your area, look at their mapping, look for historical mapping, and many of them have already done, because everyone is interested in this information, they've gone through and they've tiled them all together, created them as layers, and you can turn them on and off. Okay, so what I've done is I have already gathered together many of the historical aerial photos for Whenua and added them into a folder. So here's a link to Whenua on Retrolens. Here's a link to this folder of samples. So we're going to use one or two of these samples and have a look at what happens when we pull it out and we overlay it in Google Earth. So let's have a look at this high resolution one here from Whenua. I think that one, this one's 1944 as well. So I'm going to download it. Okay, where am I putting that? That's okay. Now I'm going to open up Google Earth and I'm going to zoom out a bit. Just going to remove that. That was one I cooked up earlier. So the first thing to do with Google Earth is when you want to overlay an image from Retrolens is you zoom down to the approximate extent of the image that you're going to be looking at. So in this case, let's just click it and have a look at this picture. We can see the things that I'm going to look for are roads. So roads in 1944, I can use to line up against roads in 2021. Now, the other interesting thing with this aerial photo is I can come along here and I can have a look at the edges, which are sometimes useful because it will tell me that this was taken at, I'm trying to read this upside down, probably can tilt it, turn it, here we go. Now we don't have to read upside down. So this is just using the Windows tool. Let's check, we've got new partai on the chat. Question from Neil, are all the images geo-referenced? Do they contain WARD files for use in geosys? Not that I am aware of, Neil. So yeah, not that I'm aware of, but I could be wrong. So before you do any large scale work with these, just check, make some inquiries to see if you can get the latitude, longitude type references. So I can see here this one, 22nd of May, 1944. I think that one is going to tell me the altitude, 11,000 feet, I think I read somewhere. So that's 11, there we go. I think that's all I was going to find. Sometimes you look at the time of the day. There's a clock, usually. That's probably the clock there, but it's a bit washed out. So you can actually see what time of day, which is useful because if you're really dedicated, you can actually look back, was the tide out, or what was the state of the tide at that time on that day in 1924, for example. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're back in Google Earth and we're going to overlay that image. And so I'm kind of wanting to have about the same area on the screen when I do this. And on the Google Earth toolbar, now we're going to do we have a whole separate video on how to use Google Earth, which is quite a neat tool. We're going to use this icon here, Add Image Overlay. And I'm going to go Browse. And I'm going to my downloads. And I'm getting the image that we just downloaded from Retrolens. And I'm at that one. I'm going to give it a name, was Whenua, 1944, 22nd of May. Now, I'm not going to go close just yet. I'm just going to do this little fidgety hiding thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this transparency bar here, and I'm going to bring it down a bit because I want to be able to see features through it. So I can see already the image is too big for this area. So I'm going to make it fairly small, and I'm just bringing it over here, and I'm just eyeballing the shape here of this kind of almost looks like a running man with the same shape over here. And I'm going to bring it there, and then I'm going to bring it smaller. And I'm going to grab, there are different ways I can maneuver this image. So I can use the middle one to move the whole image. By grabbing the corner, it's going to increase the size, but it's going to leave this corner here. And of course, the same thing with these sides as well. The other one that's useful to know is to try and eyeball getting your image aligned north with the base map. So of course, you can also tilt in Google Earth. You can turn your map. Everything doesn't have to be north, and of course the photos are not necessarily aligned to north either. Okay, so let's come down here and have a look. So we've got that intersection just there of the roads. So I can tilt that a bit more. I can say, okay, I need that to be, I'm lining up this road just here. Now I'm going to move it over. And I can also see a faint line on the aerial photo and a reasonably delineated road on Google Maps. Okay, so I'm just lining up here. I'm looking for other features as well. I might be still a bit off there. Have I got my picture too big still? Okay, so I'm going to bring it down a bit more. So this is a very easy way to do it in Google Earth. This is also sometimes called geo-referencing. So I can also see that now the awa is lining up as well as when I'm moving it around. Now, hopefully everybody can see this, because sometimes with the video, the transparency doesn't quite work. But I can see now that that's actually not too bad. Okay, I've got the awa is lining up. I can see the road down here is a little bit skewed, so I'm going to try squishing the image. Now, the image, even though it's taken out of an airplane, and the airplane is flying, it's not necessarily 90 degrees straight down on both axes. So if you imagine a plane, it's bumping around, it's going up and down, tilting. It's also tilting from side to side. So your photo here is not necessarily directly vertical. It could be on a slight angle, and anytime that there's a slight angle, it will affect the picture in the same way that if you take a photo of something up very close, the distance across your photo is not constant. And so that's also the same with a lot of aerial photography, where the center, if the center is not directly down, then the length along one side of the photo is going to be longer than the distance across the other side of the photo. So if this photo was taken and the plane was pointing a little bit to the right-hand side, then of course we'd expect a little bit of distortion over here. So with Google Earth as well, it's a very crude way of lining up these photos. So generally, you can also do this with historical survey plans, so Māori land court plans, native land court plans from the 1880s. You can do this as well, and we can see there, that one's not quite lining up. So we can tilt it a little, just to see, or it's really just having a tutu. Now you can also line up one end of the photo and the other end doesn't line up. So this is where it's just sort of, you've just got to just tutu. Okay, so there is our photo done, rectified, or placed over the landscape. So if we tilt Google Earth, we can see it's not very much 3D features just there, but we can see it. Okay, now I have got another image in that folder. So you can download any of these images that I've sourced from Retrolens. And these two with the blue icons are ones that I've cooked up earlier that I've rectified using Google Earth. So let's download that one. I'm going to wait for it to download. Now I've saved these out as KMZ. We'll come back to that at another session. But there are two files with Google Earth, KML and KMZ. KMZ compresses the image and takes it with it. A KML doesn't take the image with it. So if you're trying to save these out, I'll show you how to save these out too. You want to save these out as a KMZ. That's the same one. Aroha mai. Now, one error here is that I have put the wrong name on one of my images. So I'm going to remove that one. And I come in here and I delete that one because that's wrong. Remove. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I get we're going to take a step backwards. We're going to grab this image and we're going to download it. We're going to rectify that one as well. So we'll just repeat that process again. So this is Whenua, 1966. Okay, so that's downloading. It's a JPEG. It's the same as a phone photo that comes off your camera. Let's have a quick look at that photo in a bit more detail. We can see, first thing I want to do here is identify where the school is, the wharekura. And can I spot it? Okay, so there's that intersection again. So that's quite a nice sort of point to be able to figure out where it is. Okay, so I can see that that is a much larger area than our previous photo. So I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to zoom out a bit because it's about that kind of scale. But I can see there is our road still. Come back up here, I go add, browse, add it, and then align it again using either that corner. Let's see, where are we looking here? Have I got it around the right way? First thing is to turn it so that it's in the right direction. And I'm just going to pull that away so I can see if it is. Okay, I think that's about it. Come down here, I can see there's that intersection again. Okay, I'm miles off. Zoom out a bit. Now this one I can also use other features in the landscape to help me rectify it as well. So I can see there up the top, that little headland is the same. So this image is on a much larger scale. So the aircraft is probably flying much, much higher in this case. And I need to just fiddle around with it. If I stretch it down the bottom, I've got to pull it sideways as well to make sure that it's covering the right area. So there we go, something like that. Pull that out a bit. Come down, pull that down the headland again there. And you get the picture. So once that's lined up, you turn that right up again, the transparency right up, and then you go okay. And you can view it in 3D. So this is very, very roughly just placed on there. And you can also, of course, turn it on and off and have a look what was there now. What was there in 1944? Oops, in the wrong spot. What was there in 1966? And so that's how you can overlay those images and line them up for pretty much any area throughout Aotearoa. The next thing I wanted to have a look at with you was let's see, actually we might, since we're in Google Earth, we'll have a look at Google Earth Pro. So in Google Earth Pro, you can access high resolution satellite images that are rich in available dates, but not spatially accurate. So these are also in a similar way to the photos that we're just looking at, they're just placed approximately on the landscape, but they're not warped and stretched to fit exactly. There are a number of different that we can have a look at. Now, this reference here to being jumping around is the same thing as our photos. You'll see it in a moment. I'll show you. So with Google Earth, there are 2 or 3 different scales of images. So you can see here the current imagery in Google Earth, this normal today's imagery, is made up of a combination of different images from different times. And you can see down here, some is from Thames Coromandel District Council, some are from Airbus, a satellite company, and also Maxar, which is another satellite imagery company. You can see this line here is because they're taken at 2 different dates, but they pull through the best and most recent available image to put into the base map. If we come up here and this icon here, view historical imagery, use the time slider to slide between acquisition dates. That's the date that the photo was taken or the satellite image was captured. We can see here, it looks kind of the same. And what we can also do is we can zoom in and we can have a look at on this bar here. Okay, so looks like the most recent date for this area was American style month first, so September the 7th, 2020. If we click back one, we can see there, got to process American dates. April 9th, 2020. Now, I assume that's American dates. I could be wrong, but let's just double check in our options here. General. We've got any dates in here. I don't know, there might be an option there. Anyway, it's either one or the other. But we can see here, this is satellite image, probably 50 centimeter resolution or 50 to 60 to 75, which is about that kind of scale per 1 pixel. And we can zoom in here and we can have a look. So we can have a look at this wharekura. We can have a look at different vegetation. We can have a look at the awa. We can have a look at the ngahere. We can have a look at the repo. We can have a look at this awa here. Now, the other thing is we don't know whether there was rain the day before, so we can't usually infer the health of the stream by the color in this image because variety of factors, also depending on the date as well. But we can look at it and get a feeling of what is changing by going back through these dates. So here we have either 11th of December or the 12th of November, 2019. And if we zoom out of that, we'll be able to see what area this image covers. So each satellite image is a very large area, something like 30 by 30 kilometers, for example. So you can see here that line is about whatever that is, 20, 30 kilometers wide. But also the satellites are on very fixed orbits. So quite often those lines will line up over a period of time. So quite often, annoyingly, you'll get the line join in the same place. So let's have a look here. We're going back to either 4th of July or 7th of April. And so if we come in here, that changes. There's a trick to it that this the number of images available changes depending on where you're looking at. And generally there is a correlation between where the population are, which is the greatest interest, because Google is a commercial company, so they're looking for where people are most interested in. But fortunately, New Zealand has got pretty good coverage in most areas. So you can see that line through there as well. Again, let's come back a few more clicks. So we can see here we've kind of got a mishmash of about 4 different images here for that date. So it's kind of a little bit fiddly to figure out exactly what you're looking at times. But if we change this, let's see things. If we come down, let's come down here to the moana, use this area, and let's click backwards. So that's probably the easiest way to see and have a better understanding of when that image was taken. So this one, okay, so 16, there aren't 16 months. So now I know that that is American dates. February 16th, 2019. Coming back, 7th of January, 2019. And look at the greenery on here. We can see the amount of mangrove. Let's keep coming back. 6th of December, 2018. Keep coming back. 29th of July, 2018. Now we've skipped years to 2016. Also, it was cloudy right in that spot where we wanted to see. Come back a bit more, 2015, and so on. Now that at a certain point, the satellite imagery will stop. And so the high resolution satellite imagery stops at about the year 2000, late 90s is where the first imagery comes in. Then we have to scale, we have to zoom out a bit, because this is where the high resolution imagery stops in 2000s, say, and where before the year 2000 or the late 90s, the licensed satellite imagery wasn't available. So then we swapped to the LINZ, which is a very long-term program of satellite imagery capture. So if we come out to here, now I can see this is consistent image across the whole surface. And I can see that that has changed again in my historical imagery bar. So I can now start clicking backwards, and I can see that there was something significant going on in those 90s, because the color has changed quite a lot to when I was looking earlier into the 80s. So there's some farming practice or some land clearance. There was a lot of silting. It's quite noticeable in some of the aerial photos as well from Retrolens. So I can go back all the way back to 1984. Just waiting for that to download and catch up. Come back a bit, 89. So 88 on the East Coast, of course there was Cyclone Bowler, but can be quite difficult to interpret from this because the resolution is quite 1 pixel per 15 or 30, 40 meters. Of course you can zoom in, but it's not going to give you any additional detail. So how do you use this imagery? How do you get it out? The simplest way is to either capture the images and bring them out into a PowerPoint, where you can then annotate and point out places that have changed over time. That's the simplest way. There are more complex workflows where you can bring all the images into Google Earth and you can have them as layers, as we've got for these couple. So you can have layers that you turn on and off. And there are also websites that will allow you to, there's one we're going to have a look at, all going well, that allows you to look at that imagery by time as well. But there are complex scientific methods that will allow you to change, detect between time periods. It can be very fiddly though. So that's why my first suggestion is to start with creating a PowerPoint showing 2 images where you're just pointing out things have changed. It's very, very visual, very simple, very easy to do. You can do it in one evening kind of a thing. Ministry for the Environment have got a land use change data set, which shows you at a kind of a scale of, at this level of scale, land use change over time, but it's not particularly detailed. So if you're wanting to look at, for example, a study area on this kind of scale, then you'll be wanting to use Google Earth, or the next tool that we're going to have a look at, which is called the Esri Wayback Imagery. So this is kind of a very similar kind of a tool, except that it's online. So that link is there for you to have a look at as well. Let's go see if we can find Manaya. New Zealand. Okay, wrong Manaya. Okay. Start with Whenua because I know where it is. Come down here. So I've zoomed in again to Manaya. Actually, let's have a look at well, let's have a look at this one because we've used this one all the way through. But the same workflow, same data applies to almost all areas of Aotearoa. So we can have a look here and we can see there's a range of different images that have been taken by date. Now, the one thing with the Wayback imagery from arcgis.com is that you can access this site here in the same way that I am just now. But if you're wanting to use it on an online maps course, you'll probably need an account to be able to use them in online maps and things. So I was having a look at this yesterday and I couldn't quite figure this bit out. I think you have to add the image onto a map. So let's click that, add that, open these versions within a new web map. Okay, so great, Wayback map. So it is quite a nice, easy way to create an online view to be able to see comparison between two different time periods. Let's have a look, see what it's done. So this is using ArcGIS Online, which we did a couple of sessions on in late 2020. So if you're interested, have a look in Google Drive, late 2020, Māori land blocks, also adding other property data as well as there. Okay, so let's have a look here. So there's metadata. So metadata is data about the data, but it's not the actual data that we want. And this is the data here that we want. Let's turn that on and off. So we can see there in the base map is just a conglomeration of all kinds of different dates. This imagery from 2019, I'd say August, either 7th of August or 8th of July. You'd have to read the metadata to find out. But we can see here, this is the imagery from that period. So we can look at, now, of course, there's a difference there because of the base map is a mishmash of the best available, but let's have a look there. So we can see there's definitely a different date between when that picture was taken and when that picture was taken. Fortunately, both are relatively low tide, but we can see the change in the sandbank. And there's some random, I'm not sure what that label is. I saw some random labels. But it looks like there's some higher resolution imagery available just here as well. Let's see, or maybe it's a different color. Oh, no, it is. It looks like the same image just there. So it's not different. The best way to explore this data is just to have a tutu. And as you'll be familiar with, you're more familiar with your study areas, you'll be able to get a picture of what is changing over time. But it just takes some time to get familiar with what the imagery is actually showing you and what dates. Okay, so let's just recap. We've had a look through Retrolens. We looked at what imagery was available for Manaya. We filtered by time, date. We had a look at some sample images that we downloaded. We added them into Google Earth Pro. We had a look at Google Earth Pro, which is the desktop app, works on, Apple and Windows. We had a look at Esri Wayback imagery. If time permits, we'll come to Street View, but this is the one I really want to show you. This is the highest detail aerial photography available for most of Aotearoa. And there are multiple time periods as well. So you can see for a study area, you're going to have multiple sources of imagery, and you could pull them all together into some kind of mega GIS layers where you have them all on and off, on and off. That's a project just in itself. It's not a weekend project, it's several weeks, several weekends project. So this is why I suggest to start with just copy paste the image, screen capture, and put it into PowerPoint, and then use arrows to point out the change. Because most of the time, if you're showing someone else, you don't want to be flicking through images, turning on and off. You just want to show, here's what it was, here's how it's changed, this is what it means. Here's the difference from this period to this period to this period. You could do, say, 3 periods or something like that. With this imagery, so LINZ has hosted in partnership with councils, with regional councils, with the other partners, aerial imagery over for different time periods. So you can see here, Waikato region have got some rural photos, 2013, 2012, 2013. That's the summer of 2012 and 2013. So if we add those on, we can see we get a nice consistent image for that time period. Okay, now what we can also do is we know that there's probably some Thames Coromandel council data in here perhaps, but there might be some other Waikato as well. So let's look for, let's see what's the best way to do this. Waikato. So we can see here we've got 2012, 2013, but we've also got 2016, 2019. So if we add that one, what happens? Something, nothing. Okay, it's coming in over the top, and it looks like it's the same color scheme. So if we have a look and see what might have changed in this area, we can see there's a definite change with the wharekura. Now, the other thing with this imagery is that it is very, very accurate. It's the most accurate imagery that's available. That means not necessarily the size of the pixel. So 1 pixel, so you can see here in this data set, 1 pixel is equal to about this much on the ground. In the top data set, 1 pixel is equal to about this much on the ground, 30 centimeters. That is very, very detailed, but also it's very spatially accurate. So if we have a look at one of these buildings, we're zoomed in quite far. I'll zoom out a fraction. We can see that when I turn this off, the building shouldn't move that much. A little bit, but in the scheme of things, not much. Now with Google Earth, when you do that comparative, a building can move 50 or 30 meters, and you think, what the heck's going on here? It's just because this data set has been overlaid on the landscape, and it's been tweaked and pulled and stretched and warped to make sure that it fits like a mesh of the top of the maunga is the top of the maunga on the imagery. You will have seen many times where a river has flown up on the side of a mountain, or the maunga is, yeah, there are all kinds of crazy things that you'll see in Google Earth. But this data set is what's called ortho-rectified. It means it can be relied on as being spatially accurate, but also very high resolution. Let's have a look at that again. Now let's have a look somewhere in our moana and see what we can determine from this. So this is 2013. And the question we're trying to answer, oh no, that was 2012, 2013. The question we're trying to answer is the mangrove or the vegetation increasing, and how fast and when did it start increasing? So that's kind of the question we're trying to answer. But we can see here, there is not a huge amount of change from 2013 to say 2016. So that's maybe 3 years difference there. We can see there are a few more trees encroaching down here. Let's have a look at another area. So by looking at this data and others, we can work out, okay, is this growth stable or is there rapid encroachment? And my suspicion is that there was rapid encroachment earlier, before 2013, just based on the few images that I've been looking at. Let's have a look at another area. I'm just turning on and off the top layer. Okay, it's not drawing there. So I can see those ones have grown, and there's 3 or 4 extra ones in 3 or 4 years. So over time, that's going to add up quite a lot. But it's telling me also it's relatively stable, perhaps. I can see there's 3 or 4 here. So in 3 or 4 years' time, you know, this area here could increase further. And in the next aerial images, you'll be able to check that out as well. But you can also go backwards in things like Google Earth, the Esri Wayback service, the Retrolens, and other tools that you might find as well. But these are the highest detail, so the best quality images, but there are also not the breadth in terms of time as well. Now you can download these images, and I'll just very quickly show you how to download these images. You wouldn't want to download the whole lot. If you're using ArcGIS or QGIS, you can access this as a web service. So for those of you into using web services, you can access the web services there. For those of you using Google Earth, you can download this and add this into Google Earth, but my recommendation is just do the bare minimum area that you require. So don't do like a big chunk in this area. So this is very high resolution imagery. You just want to use this crop tool here, add it to your shopping cart. So it's good retail therapy. You crop the area that you want, and then you check how big that's going to be. Download or order. In my case, the purpose of downloading it is to look at it in Google Earth today. So I want original resolution. So I could actually download a bigger area if I want, but I'd have to go for a smaller resolution because there are file size limits, something like 20 or 50 or 100 megabytes, something like this. If you're using it, you'll soon see. Okay, nearly there. So if you have any questions, Pātai, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm also going to just look at this one last one, which is one of my favorites, Google Maps Street View. Let's have a look at this, for example. So Google Maps Street View, there is an app that you can download on your phone. I thought I'd put them in here. And if you go to the App Store or Google Play Store, you can download on your phone the Google Street View app. And that allows you to take 360 photos with any cell phone. It just takes about a minute, and you just turn the phone around, or actually you move around behind the phone, keep the phone in the same physical space. Move the phone around, up, down, all the way around, take all the photos, follow the dots, and you can create a 360 photosphere. And here are some examples in Wharekāhika of some that I did a few years ago on a field trip. So now these become a useful snapshot in time of what was going on in this area in about 2017. There we go, August 2017. So this was taken on a normal cell phone, and I can zoom in, I can have a look here. So if I had a series of these once a year or once a month, then I can use this to also demonstrate change over time. If I wanted to, in the case here, this was a snapshot to see, is this the vegetation on the sand dunes increasing or decreasing from rabbits and other predators. So if we had another photo, we could now go back and compare the two. but also being able to just go there and compare with this photo. So 3 years ago, no, was that 4 years ago now, here's a snapshot of that area. So those are ones I took. For most places in town, if you're looking at more change in a developed area, let's have a look at just randomly Gisborne. Oh, I've been there a few times. Let's have a look here, this random place. We'll see, okay, here we go. This is the icon I'm looking for. So I can see here, maybe we're looking at growth of trees or anything in the urban environment, land use change. You can come over here and you can see there's actually quite a few. So there's one here from 2019, which is what we're currently looking at. There's one here from 2018, click on that, and it adjusts a little bit. 2017, and all the way back to 2008. But there are no images before 2008. And sometimes you've got to just fiddle around to get yourself in the same spot. And sometimes you can't quite get in exactly the same spot. Okay, and there's one last one there, Google Earth time lapse, which is quite fun, but because the scale is quite high, it's really for landscape. We had a fiddle with this one just before. You can look anywhere on Earth, but this is using Landsat, and it's also from 1984 to 2018. Hopefully one day they'll update it. It will go through and you can see the effect of things like tide as well when that satellite image was taken. But if you're looking at wider landscape change, then this could be a useful tool. In your projects, I'm sure that you already have some idea of what has changed in the environment. So what you're doing is you're looking for either ways to identify what has caused it or what time did it occur, or to be able to visually represent this and show someone else, decision maker or funding, that something has changed. And you can see there's some development there. You can show that change over time as well at that kind of larger landscape scale. Okay, so to access that document, hae.re/change, and yeah, that is us for today.